And I don't hate any of those parts of me. That's been a big part of the work. And that's something I try to support people with is a lot of us, when we think about change or transformation, we think it's about getting rid of parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
I want to get rid of the addictive part of myself. If you're trying to get rid of any aspect of who you are or how you are, you're at war with yourself because one part of you is trying to fight another part. So,
Pat, say that again because it's really, really important for the audience. Can you say that again, please?
Yeah. So we all learn to become adapted to stay safe in the world. So the parts of you that you hate, that you repress, that you deny, that you want to get rid of, you want to work past, they have all done an incredible job up to a certain point of looking after you. So rather than pushing that away and being at war with yourself, I think the work is to welcome back in those parts. So a simple example would be, I might judge myself for my addictive tendencies, but if I can get a little bit closer to my addictive part and say, well, how has this supported me? It wasn't safe to feel my emotions for years, and the addict helped me to get away from that.
Yeah.
Then I can bless that part of me, accept that part of me, integrate that part of me. And anything you try to push away takes on a life of its own. But if you can move a little closer to it and become intimate with it, I think, then you have some control.
So welcome once again to the Dare to Be Different podcast, where I interview who I believe to be inspirational leaders who have been on a journey of transformation and are doing some great work in today's world. Today, I'm joined by my friend, Pat Divilly. Pat has been working in the wellness space now for over 15 years in various guises. He is a teacher, an author, a sought-after speaker, a breathwork facilitator, and a shadow work facilitator. Pat, it's such a pleasure to speak with you, mate. We've spent the last few days together, and I'm looking forward to digging in and getting to the juice of you and your life and what you're up to right now.
Yeah, good to be here. And I'm glad we backed out of our sea swim this morning. I know we're going to do it tomorrow, but it's good to have you in Galway, and I appreciate our friendship. So
don't tell them that. We do sea swims every morning.
We dared to be different. Dared to be different this morning by cancelling for once. So now we're going to do that tomorrow. So looking forward to that.
So we've already discussed the potential theme, and the theme of this podcast is navigating change. And I want to get straight into it. Pat, navigating change, navigating transformation, it's a passion of mine because myself, like yourself, we've seen significant transformation. We've experienced transformation ourselves, and we've seen with our clients significant transformation. And we live in a world today where it's proven that we can transform. Our nervous system is so adaptable to new information, and we can transform even debilitating behaviors. So what does navigating change mean for you? What comes up when I say navigating change?
Part of me says, I think intuitively we all know that change is always happening. If you step outside, the weather's changing all the time, nature's changing all the time, our bodies are changing all the time. So there's a part of me that recognizes, it's just natural. And then, of course, there's another part of me, whether it's the ego or it's the persona or whatever it is, that really resists change and wants to fit into a nice box. Like even, on podcasts, people will say, how do you want me to introduce you? And I want to be able to put myself in a box, but another part of me wants to live life in a way that I don't have to live in a box. So I think change is about, for me at least, is trying to gracefully move through life in a way that honors both my head and my heart. So being in a box is useful sometimes, but allowing yourself to go beyond how you see yourself is also useful. So I think of change sometimes that, of course, inspiration can drive us to change. So I'm so inspired to change something. More often than not, desperation drives us to change, where our life falls apart. But then there's a lot of gray area in between, I think, where maybe we don't have to get to inspiration or desperation. Maybe we can, I don't know if it's called the curse of mediocrity or the curse of the middle class, where things are fine. And so we don't allow ourselves to change. But if you stay in that space for too long, I believe then we get to desperation. So yeah, it's always happening. And it's am I in resistance to that, or am I willing to step into that? That's what comes up for me.
Yeah. And Pat, speaking to you, before the podcast, and we've got to know each other over the last few years, I thought I was an avid psychonaut and an avid self-development junkie and fascinated by the layers that we can peel back and my own potential. And I'm a lot older than you, but I talk to you and you've done so much. You know, you seem to have done so much in terms of peeling back your own layers, polishing your learning and your skills. And I want to ask you, with everything that you've done, which we could tap into if you want, how have you changed?
I think I've reclaimed a lot of the parts of myself that I pushed away early on. So, you mentioned shadow worker. And shadow, for those unfamiliar, is the idea of, we come into the world and we're pure expression. So a baby will cry when they want to cry, laugh when they want to laugh, run around naked, have their pot belly out. There's no kind of sense of judgment or expectation. And of course, as we get older, we learn who we need to be safe. So in my family, I learn I need to hide certain aspects of myself. On the rugby team, I learn I need to hide other aspects of myself. In the business world, other aspects. And so for many of us, we shut down a lot of who we are for good reason, because we want to stay safe and we want to stay connected. And so I shut down a huge amount of who I was and was in a very small box, I would say, in my teens and 20s of, I need to be stoic, I need to be hardworking, I need to be successful, I need to be tough, I need to be in control. That's still a big thing for me, trying to be in control unconsciously. So in terms of how I've changed, I think it's been about expanding what I allow myself to be. I've become freer in myself, and there's still plenty to do, but I feel a lot more comfortable in my own skin. I feel I can be the same way with you as I am with a corporate audience, the same way I am with my best friends. So there's less separation in terms of who I am in different environments. So I feel more authentic. I was a nice guy for a long time and put everyone else ahead of myself, and I'm learning to be more authentic and listen to myself. So that's come through the work, I think.
Okay. So as a young boy, as a teenager, you mentioned that you were a nice guy. Obviously that behaviour's learnt and it's what you wanted to show to the world, and there's some shadows behind that, or some repressed parts of your own expression. Any other masks that you believe you needed to wear growing up?
I was bullied quite a bit when I was young. And of course, I believe our early experiences, are formative and they kind of shape how we see the world going forward. So I often say to people that we all mature biologically and get older, but psychologically we sometimes get stuck. And so I think emotionally, the bullied parts of me, I repressed my sadness and my fear and my anger and all these different aspects. And I became a nice guy. I became a funny guy at times. It was debatable, but some people found me funny. I became an achiever. I became a martial artist. I became lots of different things. And I don't hate any of those parts of me. That's been a big part of the work. And that's something I try to support people with, is a lot of us, when we think about change or transformation, we think it's about getting rid of parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
I want to get rid of the addictive part of myself. If you're trying to get rid of any aspect of who you are or how you are, you're at war with yourself, because one part of you is trying to fight another part. So,
Pat, say that again, because it's really, really important for the audience. Can you say that again, please?
Yeah. So we all learn to become adapted to stay safe in the world. So the parts of you that you hate, that you repress, that you deny, that you want to get rid of, you want to work past, they have all done an incredible job up to a certain point of looking after you. So rather than pushing that away and being at war with yourself, I think the work is to welcome back in those parts. So a simple example would be, I might judge myself for my addictive tendencies, but if I can get a little bit closer to my addictive part and say, well, how has this supported me? It wasn't safe to feel my emotions for years, and the addict helped me to get away from that.
Yeah.
Then I can bless that part of me, accept that part of me, integrate that part of me. And anything you try to push away takes on a life of its own. But if you can move a little closer to it and become intimate with it, I think, then you have some control.
Yeah. Here. I wonder if we could go into that a little bit more, because it's definitely been my experience that instead of trying to punch the inner critic in the face, and instead of telling my angry self to fuck off, if I cultivate some kind of relationship with it, allow it to be there and inquire into that and feel into that and really go inwards into that, and And as you say, eventually realize that it's just like a father, and he has various children, and they all need love. These parts need love. And that's my experience. And I have some deep relationships with my clients, and we can go there. But for the average man watching this, it can be quite confusing sometimes when they hear people like me and you saying, well, you've got to be intimate with those parts. You know, the one that's angry, be intimate with him. The one that's aggressive, be intimate with him. The one that doesn't want to cry, be intimate with him. The anxious one. How can we simplify this for men and women?
Two things come up. One is, if we move away from parts for a moment and we consider maybe behaviors instead. So this might seem an out there example, but I remember a mentor of mine years ago said to me that if someone wants to stop smoking and they keep smoking and they shame themselves, it's going to be difficult. But if they can ask themselves what smoking gives them, it can shift things. So someone who smokes gets to step away from the stressful environment to the smoking area. Maybe for the first time in the day, they get to take a deep breath. And third thing that happens for a smoker is they're with like-minded people in the smoking area. So they're getting connection, they're getting deep breath, and they're moving away from a stressful environment.
Yeah.
If we can look at any behavior that we've got in life that we're shaming ourselves for and ask, what does this give me? So porn maybe gives me a sense of intimacy without having vulnerability of having to ask for what I want. Alcohol, for me, for years, gave me a quiet mind and a social circle because my friends were all in the pub. Gambling might give someone who has a mundane or routine life a sense of adventure. So this is how you might start to have a compassionate lens on kind of why you do what you do. And your next step from that might be to ask, well, how could I meet these needs? We all have needs. And if we don't consciously meet our needs, so we have a need for connection. If you don't actively go out there and feed that need for connection, your shadow, which is the unconscious part of you, will find ways to find connection. Again, that could be porn, that could be gambling, that could be any of these behaviors that we shame ourselves for. So that would be how I would encourage people to become intimate with themselves. And the way that we're talking about is to, rather than have the same inner critic that maybe has been there for decades saying, you shouldn't do this. It's like, well, you do it. So let's get curious. Well, I wonder what this gives me. If you want to shut yourself down, make statements about yourself. If you want to open yourself up, ask questions. So a statement is, I'm a disaster. A question is, I wonder why I keep sabotaging myself. And being curious and being open. Maybe if you have to, take a third person perspective and think, what would I say to a friend who's dealing with the same stuff? It's probably a bit lighter than what you'd say to yourself.
Yeah, of course. But ultimately, the inquiry is inwards, right?
Yeah.
And Pat, I know we'll move into talking about your journey in a moment, because I know your professional journey is quite fascinating. You know, you started off as this fitness boot camp guy, and now you're a sought after speaker and author, and becoming an expert in shadow work, which is sometimes difficult to explain what it is. But can you talk about the inner child, and can you talk about how important that work is for adults in today's world?
Yeah. As I mentioned, I think we all mature biologically, but get stuck psychologically. So if a man is told as a boy, don't cry, which is a kind of common thing, or a girl is told, little girls don't get angry, or that's not very ladylike, we take on these messages and we don't have context as kids. There's no sense of context. So it's very black and white. This is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong. And so we put half of who we are into the bad box and half of who we are into the good box.
Yeah.
And many people go through their whole life never looking back at those. So when you think of it, a lot of how we see the world is based on judgments we made when we were 5 or 6. So it's like an unexplored life. And so if I've never explored this stuff, then my inner child can run my life a lot. The little boy that was never allowed to cry is somewhere there in the background. He lives inside of us, and he can show up when we feel stressed or anxious. The example I sometimes give is, I'm a speaker, and I stand on stage and I present. And when I'm in a really good place and I feel grounded and I feel confident and I'm looking after myself, it's the 36-year-old that steps up on stage. When I've drank too much coffee, or I've not been looking after myself, or I haven't slept well and I'm feeling more stressed, it's sometimes the teenage boy that stands up there and is kind of like, I want you to love me, I want you to like me. And when I'm very overwhelmed and fearful, it's the little boy that shows up on stage. So it's like three different parts. And so again, I could beat myself up about that, or I could ask, okay, there's a part of me feeling really scared here, or vulnerable, or feeling like I'm going to be rejected. How can I tend to that part? I've almost got to become a parent to the younger parts of myself.
Yeah.
And that's something that, we hear all these words, self-love, self-care, all this. What is it really?
Yeah.
It's a part of me. It's in the language that we use. We'll sometimes say, a part of me feels like I just can't do it anymore. A part of me. So we're literally saying there's a part of us, and there's another part that's recognizing that. And there's another part that can step in and care. So I think inner child work is about recognizing we have both a healthy adult man within us and almost an elder energy, within us, like a father energy, and we have an inner child energy. And one of our mentors, Robert Masters, talks about this idea that you've got to get in between the inner critic and the inner child. So the inner critic that says, you'll never be enough. Who is that voice being directed toward? It's the young, vulnerable child. And so there's got to be something that steps in and says, wait a second, you're struggling at the moment, but of course you're struggling. You've taken on too much or whatever it might be. So I think that's the work.
Yeah, self-love. Again, for a lot of men, especially that grew up, because we grew up in, I guess, a similar society where we thought we needed to be tough guys and nice guys. And even that word self-love can be triggering for some men out there.
Yeah.
And as I get older, I'm realizing that the message is really important to help men feel safe. And I was only having a conversation yesterday with a client about this concept of self-love and the external part of that, if you like, may be things like taking care of yourself, sleeping well, being aware of your health, your food, saunas, massage, whatever. But that's just like a Band-Aid, isn't it? It's like putting a Band-Aid over something. Ultimately, that self-love for me is the radical self-inquiry, the radical intimacy with oneself. How would you define self-love?
Maybe similar, what comes to me with self-love is I have a very easy time loving myself when I'm productive and I'm social and I'm calm and I'm grounded and I'm in flow. It's harder for me to love myself when I'm lonely and I'm feeling shame and I'm judging myself based on what my friends are doing. And so I think true self-love is starting to bring love to those parts, because it's easy for any of us to love ourselves when we're getting external praise, but it's how do we give it to ourselves? Coming back to the intimacy piece that we talked about earlier, like what does that mean? For me, there's the two extremes. There's disconnecting from my emotion and pretending it's not there. So pretending I'm not an angry person and I don't experience anger. The other side is to let the anger absolutely consume me and take over. And of course, the man who disconnects from his anger at some point is going to flip the lid and let it completely overtake him. I see intimacy as being somewhere in between, where I can notice what I'm feeling and I can communicate with what I'm feeling and get to understand what I'm feeling without letting it run. Dick Schwartz, who founded Internal Family Systems, shared a great analogy with this, that if you think about all your emotions and all your different parts on a bus, and everyone's got a seat on the bus and they're welcome to have a seat on the bus, but the adult needs to drive the bus. But sometimes when we get stressed, someone runs to the front, they say, I got this. So when you experience maybe criticism from your partner, suddenly your inner critic comes in and starts to take over, and it's like, okay, I get it. This is but to be intimate is to be able to notice, okay, this is what's happening, but I'm not going to blindly believe my emotions, blindly believe my thoughts. I'm going to challenge and question them. to better understand myself.
Yeah. So coming back to our original theme of change and navigating change, also realizing that, hey, something needs to change, my behaviors need to change. And we've already discussed this self-inquiry, this self-acceptance, this learning to be intimate and have a relationship with maybe parts of ourselves that we don't like, and how that journey can lead to change. What are some tools that have worked for you, or what are some tools that are your go-to tools with clients to enable them to go on this journey of self-connection, self-intimacy, and ultimately journey of behavioral transformation?
Well, one map, I suppose, which you're very familiar with, is the hero's journey. And I like to share that with people just as a bit of to give a bit of context and a bit of perspective. So hero's journey is the idea of we all as humans connect to story. And so story can be people that have inspired you in life and you're just drawn to them. It can be books, it can be movies, it can be, any type of story. It's how we learn. It's the best way to learn is through a story. It's how we resonate with other people, is hearing their stories or seeing their stories. And I always tell people, you wouldn't read a story about a superhero who gets up in the morning and goes to bed at night and just had their breakfast in between and nothing exciting happened. So we're drawn to the hero's journey, which is the hero is in their ordinary world. They're going about their day-to-day lives, and then something happens. Either there's something outside of themselves that draws them to having to change, or there's something in them that calls them to change. And in the films that we watch, heroes go and they embrace challenges and they slay dragons, and they go on this, they meet Merlin the wizard and they meet mentors and all this kind of stuff. And eventually, if they stick with it, they come back and they complete their journey, and it's been, oh wow, an incredible story. I'm so inspired. We don't slay dragons in our lives. We don't meet demons, hopefully, in our lives. What we do meet is the shadow, which is what we talked about. So those parts. So that's our hero's journey. When we step into something new, and I try to help people understand that, is when you try to create substantial change in your life, you're going to be forced into looking at the parts of yourself that you've tried to look away from. And that's your metaphorical journey. And just like the movies, you're going to need mentors, you're going to need support, you're going to need challenge, otherwise you're not going to grow. So I offer that to people as a map. Outside of that, I would be encouraging my clients or people I work with or myself to think about, how you resource yourself and how you anchor yourself. So the nature of change is it's disruptive, and it's we experience, uncertainty is a challenging thing, and uncertainty can bring about anxiety. So I think in times of great uncertainty, you've got to have elements of certainty. And I call these anchors. So the people that you can turn to, the environments you can go to, the behaviors that you go to that help you feel grounded and calm within yourself. To keep it really simple, a client could make a list called the When Life Works list and look at your life and who are the people, what are the behaviors, what are the environments that support you feeling your best consistently. And that's your When Life Works list.
Nice.
And the more change you're dealing with, the more you're going to have to lean on that list. Because when there's chaos, and let's say I get made redundant, I've got to put food on the table and everything's up in the air, I can get lost in that chaos, which would be very understandable. And I can get thrown up and lose my sense of grounding in the world. But I find that grounding through my anchors. So, I think a big thing for men is speaking, because when we're experiencing change that we didn't ask for, sometimes there's shame, like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm bad. There's something wrong with me. And one of the tenets of shame is isolation. We want to push people away. And then the story gets stronger and stronger, that belief that there's something wrong with me. So a fundamental aspect of change is having support. Another kind of thing I share with people is that we all grew up and we went to school. And when school finished and we went to high school, everyone around you was going to high school too. So it was kind of easy. The change was a little bit easier because then you went to college, then you went to the next thing. But as an adult, when you get the call to adventure and something wants to change, you're on your own to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And you look around you and it's like, oh, my friends seem to have it together, or all the men around me seem to have it together. And that's your journey. You've got to lean in, but you need support, I think, in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this we touched on it at the start of the podcast that change is inevitable. I think it is inevitable. I believe that life presents us with situations so we can change and evolve. I feel it's a necessary part of human existence. And fortunately or unfortunately, when we get into it used to be 50, it seems to be younger now. When we get into our 30s or 40s or 50s, something does happen. And most of the time it can be a painful experience, one of loss, one of significant change, one of pain. And what I see is men, because I mostly work with men, who have two options at that stage. They can go through the black door, which is fear. I don't want to change. This is who I am. I'll strive to maintain the way I continue to live. And that usually leads to sabotaging behaviors, more addiction, more depression, more pretending, more defending who they are, living a life of fear. And the white door is the opposite, which is where you and I come in as coaches, mentors, teachers that can help people to realize that, okay, you've experienced a significant amount of pain here. Be with it. Be intimate with it. And maybe we can go through the white door, which is the door of, wow, there's so many layers to peel back. There's so much potential that I've not already stepped in yet. It's a bit scary, but wow, I can become anything I want to become. I don't have to be this person. I can keep what serves me. I can let go of what doesn't serve me. Let's navigate this. Let's really move into a life of optimal potential. And in the work that I do, I'm humbled every time I work with a client who chooses to go through the white door. It's absolutely incredible. It touches my heart. I know a lot of men who are taking this option to walk through the white door, transforming, modeling a different way of leading in today's world as a man, leading more from the heart, striving to be better leaders and husbands and sons and fathers. And sometimes I'm oblivious to anything outside of what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. But I know it's not enough, and I know there's a lot of people still struggling out there. Suicide in men, I think there's been some decent stats in the UK, to be honest, but I think in most of the world it's still on the rise. Even suicide in women, depression's through the roof, manifestation of mental sickness is through the roof. And what's your take on this? Are we doing enough? Are we pissing in the wind?
Two things. Jeff Thompson is an incredible mentor of mine. Or was it Jeff? It wasn't Jeff, actually. It was someone else. Yeah, Jeff's given me lots of wisdom. But the shamanic practitioner, Martin Duffy, said to me, if you put an animal in the zoo, the animal gets sick. You can't blame the animal. It's the environment that they're in. And I think to some degree, the environment that we're all living in now is obviously contributing to these, mental health issues. There's no quick fix solution. Like, we weren't designed to be on screens all the time, to be locked up inside, to be, more than anything, I think we weren't designed to be isolated. And there's a lot of isolation now.
Yeah.
So I think that was what Jeff shared with me, actually. I remember when George Floyd, when the incident happened in the States, anytime these global incidents come up, I feel a lot, because there's so much going on around us. It's like, I feel really uncomfortable because I don't know what to do. And I remember asking Jeff, who to me is just a mountain of wisdom. I said, what am I doing enough? What can I do? Does it make any difference? All this kind of stuff. I said, am I bypassing if I say I'm just going to work on myself? And he said, ultimately, all you can do is work on yourself and become a transmission. So with what's happening in the world at the moment, I'm trying to look at like what's happening here is like genocide driven by greed. And so I have to put that back on myself and say, where am I greedy? Because I have way too much stuff in my house. I spend too much, all that kind of stuff. So are we doing enough? We can always do more, I'm sure, but I think it always starts with ourselves. Hopefully, one of my goals in life is to be a permission slip to people, that if he can do it, maybe I can lean into my fears or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Interesting point we're coming up to, because I, working on yourself, I'm sometimes in conflict with that. And let me elaborate a little bit. So one of the greatest leadership advice that I was given, and I give to all my clients, is, mate, whoever you are leading or whoever you are influencing, they can't become what they can't see. So working on yourself is absolutely critical. But I am sometimes in conflict with that. And what I mean is, I don't have a TV, Pat. I don't read the news. I don't go on the internet surfing that much. I don't really know what's going on in Gaza, because I'm constantly trying to work on myself in order to be, if you like, a more authentic, mature version of Craig. But occasionally I feel ignorant. Should I know what's going on in the world? Should I allow myself to feel the pain of Gaza? Should I volunteer for some worthy cause? Do you have a similar experience?
For sure. Yeah, I think that's what I'm pointing to with when I spoke to Jeff that time. It's just like, I don't know if I'm just being ignorant here, closing my eyes. If I don't want to feel my feelings, I don't know what's going on and what difference can I make. And I know I'm always referencing different teachers, but one of my teachers, Francis Weller, who's incredible, he talks about grief. But he has a quote, something to the effect of, if I don't allow myself to feel my grief, I'll become cold to the world and I'll lose my sense of empathy. If I don't allow myself to feel my gratitude, I'll become a complete cynic and I'll hate the world and everything else. So it's probably something in between of, it's also overwhelming, I find at the moment, obviously looking on social media and seeing everything that's happening, you can't get away from it. And so, there is echo chambers to a certain degree, outside of, Gaza, the other, like in Ireland, there's a big immigration crisis at the moment. You've got these people out in the streets marching and, they shouldn't let the immigrants in and all this kind of stuff. Most of those people, I'm making a generalization, but most of those people are not doing anything to support, they're not trying to fix the solution. They just want to complain about something. And there is that fear that just pulls people in. So one of the things that I think serves me is the idea of think globally, but act locally. This is a quote by Jane Goodall, and she said, I think it's Goodall, but she said, think globally. So I'm seeing what's happening, but act locally. So I see what's happening in the world. That's going to be massively overwhelming. Yeah. But how do I take that home? And how am I a bit more compassionate or a bit more kind or a bit more conscious of where I spend my money or a bit more conscious? So I think that's maybe a healthy middle ground. Yeah. So I'm not closing my eyes to what's going on, but I'm also not getting pulled into, again, maybe it's the intimacy piece of, I'm not going to deny, I'm not going to lean too far in, I'm going to get close enough to it that I can reflect on how do I show up.
Yeah, thanks for that, mate. Going into your journey a little bit, your professional journey, and feel free to touch on your childhood if that feels right. I'm walking around Galway city with you, and you seem to know everybody. You're like Jesus. You're quite popular in the city. A lot of people seem to know you when I talk about you. And I know that you started off in the fitness industry, personal training, boot camps, and now you're an author. You've written quite a number of books. You're fascinated by shadow work. You've wrote at least one book on shadow work. You're writing another one. I know it's close to your heart. Like, tell me about this 15-year journey from personal trainer to, shadow worker, breathwork facilitator, coach, teacher.
Probably a lot of cliche in my story that I was insecure teenager. I I found martial arts when I was 15. I started judo and weightlifting, and it was the first thing in my life that gave me confidence and a sense of self. I played rugby and stuff like that, but I always struggled with team sports. I just didn't feel like one of the lads. I didn't feel like I fit in. But when I found martial arts, it gave me an identity. Pat's a fighter now, and it was like I fed into that, and went to America when I was 18 to cage fight for 6 months, and that influenced me. And I had a mentor back then who was 28. He was 10 years older, and he really believed in me. I would always say to him, this gym's full of weekend warriors that are never actually going to make it. Am I one of those? And he'd say, no, you're the real deal, which I wasn't. I was a weekend warrior. But he ended up taking his own life. When I was 18, he was 28, and he had been a fitness trainer. And I think when he died, I wanted to honor his legacy to some degree, and I decided to scrap the martial arts and become a fitness guy. So I failed with a business when I first set up a business in Dublin. It was, again, cliche. I went to Dublin, left Galway. I'm going to become somebody. I'm going to prove people wrong. Nobody cared, of course, but there was all that young ego. And when I failed at 24, I moved back in with my parents, and I really struggled with my mental health, and I had a lot of shame around failure. And everyone around me had said, you're not going to become a fitness guy in Ireland. There's no industry here, because there wasn't really at the time. And I started teaching classes down on the beach locally just to try and save a bit of money so I could go back to college. And I started with 5 clients and created this culture of kind of community, which a lot of people were lacking. And it was funny because I was 24 then. I didn't realize how it is to be in your 30s, 40s, 50s and maybe feel like connection is missing in your life. I thought I was teaching push-ups and broccoli, that was what I loved. Yeah. And for whatever reason, it took off. I went from like 5 clients to 100 clients in a few months, 500 clients within a year. Opened a gym, put my courses online because most of my generation had gone to Australia and Canada because of the recession. And in 4 years, we had 20,000 clients go through my courses. So externally, my whole world changed from like being broke to buying a house in a couple of months nearly. But I noticed internally when I got to 28, I ticked every box I thought you were supposed to tick. So bought the house, the car, had a successful business that I dreamed about since I was a kid. I had a great girlfriend. I was well known. And I thought when I was successful, it would make me feel complete. And it actually shined a magnifying glass on my insecurities. So that prompted me to step away completely. So I kind of just overnight stepped away from fitness and went on my own journey of trying to figure out the mind. And I suppose also working with 20,000 people in fitness, you start to see it's not about push-ups and broccoli. It's about how we speak to ourselves. It's about our sleep, our stress. So I spent a couple of years going into coaching and looking at the mind. And the mind was great. It was good to set goals and get to the goals and manage my time and all that kind of very logical stuff. Yeah. But then I reached a point where, again, I achieved everything, but I didn't feel comfortable in my skin. I couldn't look people in the eye. I couldn't sleep. And I thought, Jesus, I have nothing in my life that's wrong. There's nothing I can point to. But what I was doing in that was denying my emotions. I was experiencing fear and anxiety and overwhelm. But I would say I shouldn't feel this way. I should be happy. I should be grateful. And I guess that led me to meditation, to breathwork. So it's just been a journey of, I'm very lucky in a way, and I only realize it when people mirror it back to me, that I've been able to go on a journey and then bring people along with me in a way that is a business and is, supports a lifestyle that feels good for me. But failure was a pivotal point for me in terms of like redirecting my life, and also success was a pivotal point in redirecting my life in similar ways, because the same insecurities were there when I achieved all the external stuff. So the long and the short was I ran out of places to look. I looked to alcohol, I looked to success, I looked to every other thing. I looked to women, I looked to anywhere I could look to look away from myself. So the last couple of years I'm trying to just make peace with myself.
Okay. And we'll come on to, I want to ask the same question as I'm going to ask now in a moment, professionally, but personally, in your next phase of personal development as Pat, what you're looking to move into, where's your focus going to be over the next few years for you as personally?
A bit more balance, maybe, outside of work has been a huge part of my life, and it's filled a lot of gaps, and I love my work. So, but there's probably a bit of boundary needed there in terms of not being as fixated with it. I would like to have a healthy relationship. That's definitely been a challenge for me over the years, like losing myself in relationship and yeah, finding that balance of being able to stay in my life that I've created that I love, and also be open to bringing someone into that and stepping into their world. That's something I would like to heal, because there is a pattern there for me of maybe experiencing loneliness and then finding someone and then losing a bit of this great life that I've created for myself. So that's an important piece of work for me. Outside of that, someone asked me last week, what would you do if you won the lotto in the morning? I wouldn't change anything. I really like my life. I travel a couple of months a year. I train jiu-jitsu regular. I've got good people in my life. As you say, I love to learn, and so I'm always learning and developing.
Yeah.
There's not a lot I would change. I would like to meet someone. The other thing is, over time, I want to get less and less, not that I want to get less and less known. It's not about that, but I don't want to have to put myself out on social media to build my life. I would like to have a reputation where the right people come to me, and I don't have to get thousands of clients to just get, that's going straight back into work. Yes, about personal, but yeah.
And professionally, what you're up to, what you're building, what you're creating, what's the next few years look like for you?
So I'm writing a book about shadow work at the moment, which is my ambition and my hope with that is to make shadow work accessible to a mainstream audience.
Yeah.
So that'll come out early next year. I'm really enjoying the writing on that. I just launched a breathwork teacher training. Breathwork's been a big catalyst for me over the last couple of years in terms of, we talk about dropping from the head into the heart and maybe just going beyond logic. So I've been studying breathwork with different teachers for 8 years. So just launched my own school, and that feels like growing up in some regards. That I've been the student for 20 years probably now of different things, and it's a chance now I'll always be a student, but it's a chance to actually sit down and think about everything I've experienced over the last number of years and teach. So those are the two main things.
Yeah.
And
your breathwork course is soon, right?
It starts in 3 weeks. And It's full for the first one, which is amazing, and just excited more than anything to. It was humbling, and it was nice actually I spoke to everyone who's going to get involved and had an hour-long conversation to make sure it's a good fit for people. And some of the people that signed up kind of said, I don't really want to be a breath worker, but I'd like to work with you for 6 to 12 months and just be in that space. And they said, I know you bring good people together. So that's what's exciting for me in the future, is creating spaces where we can support community, we can help people develop skills. I think we're coming into an interesting time where we're kind of, interesting is one word for it, but AI and all this kind of like fast pace of life is, we start to think about when something's in high supply, it's low demand, and the vice versa. So like, what are the skills of the future that are going to really allow us to experience life in a good way? And I think it's like having depth, having presence, having authenticity, these kind of things. So I would like to form programs that support that. Because as you know, like, we support one another on things that we're working through, and I need that. I think we all need that to, so I want to be a catalyst for that, I think.
Great. And Pat, just kind of coming full circle to what we started talking about, which is navigating change. If someone is watching this and an event has happened in their life, or they've had an inner realization that I need to change, what basic advice could you give to that person that realizes that they need to change, but they're a little bit scared?
One is seek support. 2 is, you mentioned, scared. And I think, fear can be 2 things. Fear can be your reason to turn around and go back to safety, or fear can be the catalyst for change. So maybe I can share a story because we're in Galway. I used to run retreats here for a couple of days, and at the end of the retreats, we'd go to the diving boards, which are down in Salt Hills. Like, I had a 15-foot diving board. And we'd round off a retreat by saying, let's jump into the next chapter. And like, this is how we overcome fear. And one of my clients, everyone jumped off one by one, all the clients. And it was a sunny day, so there's hundreds of people there. And one of the guys at the end is like really struggling. He's really terrified. And everyone starts watching this guy on the diving board that's taken like 15, 20 minutes to jump off. I think Ireland were playing a rugby game that day. So we kind of said to him, look, we're supporting you, but it's time to jump. And he waited for so long. And the longer he waited on the diving board, the scarier it got. Eventually he jumped, and the whole 200 people down at Blackrock were shouting for him. And so a couple of weeks later, the group met up again. I wasn't there, but they met up again and had a drink in town. And they were in a bar, and he saw a girl across the bar, and he said, "Oh, she's beautiful." He didn't say she's beautiful. He said something to the effect of, "She's beautiful." And everyone said, "Go and talk to her, go and talk to her." And he says, "I can't talk to her, I can't talk to her." Started again talking himself out of it, just 10, 15 minutes. One of the guys went over, got the girl, brought her over, said, "My friend would like to meet you." And she looked him up and down, and she said, "You're the guy from the diving board a few weeks." And in both examples, it was a case of fear came in, and he waited and he waited and he waited. And the longer he waited, the bigger the fear got, and the more stories he built about how all the ways she was going to reject him, all the ways he was going to hurt himself diving off the diving board. And I think that's the nature of fear, is if you let fear run your life and you let it paralyze you, you will get stuck in your head, and it will just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And so take action will be a word of encouragement for anyone that's dealing with change. And it doesn't matter how small the action is. You start with, like, what I grew a fitness business with 20,000 clients. The way that I did it was every day I made 3 commitments to myself of things I would do. And every day was different. But okay, I'm going to write an article today. I'm going to hand out flyers, and I'm going to do this. And you do that for long enough with any change you're trying to make. Sometimes the fear is trying to jump too far too quick, or comparing yourself. So small steps, get support, and embrace the fear.
Yeah, thank you. And when you say embrace the fear, we're talking about having a relationship with it, aren't we? Instead of pushing it away or flicking it off the shoulder.
Yeah. What's happening when there's fear is there's a part of you that's scared. So can you lean into that part and say, you're going to be okay? Like, say you're asked to give a work presentation and you're terrified of standing up in front of people. What's the part of you that's scared of speaking? It's probably the 14-year-old who stumbled over their words in class. What did that 14-year-old need that they didn't get at the time? They needed someone to say, "It's not a big deal." Yeah. And you probably need to say that to yourself now. "It's not a big deal if you mess this up.
Yeah.
And I believe in you." And then there's a softening, and you can kind of lean into it.
A few quick fire questions to finish.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
What do you love about yourself?
I love my willingness to change and to allow myself. I love the freedom that I allow myself to not be who I was yesterday.
What frustrates you about yourself still?
How I show up in a relationship.
If you had a superpower, what would you choose and how would you use it?
Oh, wow. What a question. If you had a superpower, how would you salsa dance, and I'd use it to meet my future wife.
Nice. If God was looking down on your life right now, what would his commentary be? What would he say?
How you relate to yourself and how you choose to relate to yourself is the greatest work you can do in your life.
Final question. Who's paying for breakfast, you or me?
We'll find someone on the street that'll pay for us, hopefully.
So thanks, Pat.
Pleasure. Thank you.
We've got so much more to talk about. I look forward to doing another podcast with you. And I want to thank you for your time. And where can our viewers find you if they want to research more about Pat Divilly and his work?
I'm walking around the streets of Galway. You might get a bump into me. PatDivilly.com is my website. And yeah, thank you for your friendship and for your guidance. And yeah, appreciate you.
Great. Thanks, brother. Let's go and get some breakfast.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening. Hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Dare to Be Different podcast with teacher, author, speaker, breathwork facilitator and shadow work facilitator, Pat Divilly. See you soon on the next episode.